Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Para OR Normal Guyz. I hope you're ready for a great show. First off, got to take care of some business. Thanks to the Parapost Network for allowing us on their network. Thank you for the Uncle Rico Show for sharing our show being live tonight. And when we get our phone line situation, we will be having a toll-free number to call in. Compliments of Yergs, yergsradio.com, which we are going on at this time. We're on Yergs Radio and the Rainbow Radio Network. Okay, enough of that. Y'all didn't come in here to hear me talk. Let's see who I got back here. I got Miss Cheyenne.
They came in here to see me.
Well, that's questionable. Miss Amanda, Miss Dina. But the real guest of honor is Miss Irena Scott. How are you, young lady? We have got a crew assembled, and we got all kinds of questions for you. You wrote a very popular book. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I've written 5 books so far. They're on the subject of UFOs, and I can tell you a little bit about each of them if you want me to.
Yes, please.
Sure. Please do.
Please.
My first one is UFOs Today, and it's kind of a general book about UFOs. It's chronological and starts with actually before UFOs were known, and then goes on and tells the highlights of each year. And these are mainly ones that I investigated, so that I have some personal knowledge about them. My second book is Sacred Corridors, and it's chiefly about Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is sort of the mecca of UFOs. And I had been sent there for work-related reasons and also knew people that worked there. And so then I knew Jenny Zeidman, who worked there under Project Blue Book and under Dr. Hynek. And she gave me all her old notes from way, way back. And so I found out a lot about Project Blue Book and Wright-Patterson and everything else. And I was in the secured area. I was in the Blue Room, which is a famous part of Wright-Patterson.
You have to have queue to get in there, don't you?
Well, I was escorted in, so I didn't get to wander around and look at anything. But another person and I went in, and we attended a UFO meeting, and we wrote it up in a publication too.
Like a UFO enthusiast dream.
What?
It's like a UFO enthusiast's dream to have notes right from the inside and to be able to go in there.
Mm-hmm.
It sure was. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. The person I went with wasn't very excited, and I kept telling him, "This is just amazing."
Wow.
Wright-Patterson. He said, "Oh."
Yeah.
But anyway.
Be excited. We're here.
Yeah.
The phone rang line. I'm hoping it's Ross testing it. Ross, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You've cut me out of my own number.
Oh, well.
You've taken the third line and assigned it to yourself.
I'm that kind of
And
guy.
the only one you didn't assign to yourself was the one that you were trying to.
Oh, my.
Well, thank you for fixing it. I apologize for
Sounds accurate.
Your phone
Yeah.
board.
I am in the process of trying to get some calls back from
Okay.
a
Well,
local county supervisor.
okay. Well,
So
we're live
I
at
need
the
my line
moment,
back.
so, okay.
So unassign it, Glenn.
I'm going to try and figure out how I did it, Ross. Or you can do it. Whichever. Sorry.
I can't do it. That's the point. I'm locked out of it.
Okay. Well, hold on a minute. I'll get it. Irena, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Carry on. I'm
You're not even
mute
supposed to
myself.
have that capability.
Okay. We'll go ahead and continue. Show you're muted.
Sorry, I said, please continue telling us about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the person that took us in was the archivist from Wright-Patterson, and he told us a lot about things. And at that time, neither one of us had any idea this was the Blue Room. We knew I had been there before, and I knew that this was a really, really secured building that had cameras up around the roof and all those monitoring things all over the even the parking lot and the grass and everything. So if a mouse walked by, they probably knew it.
Yeah.
And it was really impressive, but it was several years later I found out it was a blue room. But we went to a UFO meeting, and we didn't know that much about it, so he didn't appreciate it. I really thought it was fantastic.
Oh, wow.
They talked about UFOs, and one thing that was interesting was that this was several years ago, they were talking about gun camera pictures from videos from airplanes. And people were saying, yeah, they have good pictures of UFOs. And then suddenly the moderator said, keep quiet. There's unsecured people in here. And that was us.
Oh, wow.
Like, no, don't worry. It's the secret's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
we were impressed that we thought they would have been talking about something else if we weren't in there. Words of it, then they were talking about they had good photography of UFOs.
Yeah. And that was back then, right?
That was back then. That was back before all
Wow.
these recent things.
Yeah.
Of course, I already suspected that. And
Oh,
I
of
asked,
course.
I
Yeah.
asked about the building, why it was so secured. And they said, I didn't know it was a blue room then, but they said that one reason was because they worked on satellite photography. And that was what I had worked on previously. And it was a very, very, very secured thing. I mean, I was in a building you had to go through about 3 vaults to get to work. And you had chain link fences around it and everything.
Wow.
And
That's nuts.
Really?
That's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, one-way mirrors and the whole deal. So I knew it was secured, but I suspected they had UFO information in there. And I don't know what they had, but I'm sure there was an underground chamber under it too. But I didn't get to wander around and look at anything. But so I took a number of pictures in the book. In the secured area where I wasn't supposed to be, but they had sent me, my company had sent me. And so I was in the secured area. And so I didn't ask anybody. I just took out my car and walked around and took pictures of everything, secretly.
wow.
People couldn't see me doing it.
Yeah. And you got away with, you got out with them. That's awesome.
So I was quite happy, but there was a lot about Wright Patterson in here. And then my next book was Inside the Lightning Ball. And this was basically my own experiences with UFOs. But it started, I called it Inside the Lightning Ball because I started with a comparison between lightning balls and UFOs. And I thought some UFOs are lightning balls and vice versa. But I called it Inside the Lightning Ball because once I was taking a video and a bolt of lightning landed right beside me and things lit up around me. And I thought I was actually inside a lightning ball. But I had the video going, which is something you aren't lucky enough to do. And after it was over with, I came in to the house, which had all the alarms going and everything. And the lightning had been so close that I was blinded and I couldn't hear for a while. But then finally, when I came to my senses, I played the video back and it didn't show anything. And I was just disappointed. There was just a big white thing. But then I was visiting somebody when it happened. And I was up on a porch, which was about 15 feet tall with wooden posts. And so the lightning had landed right beside the porch, but I hadn't got killed because the wood was insulated, but it affected everything in the house and there were alarms going off and everything. And so anyway, when I came home later, I replayed the video. And what was really cool is that I played it in slow motion. Well, when the thing hit, I didn't get a picture of the bolt, but everything just lit up. And I figured later that was a lightning bolt I was inside. But then immediately after that, there was a cell tower about 150 feet away,
Mhm.
and it had these big cables. Well, the lightning shorted up one of the cables, and I hadn't seen that at all in real life, and I didn't realize it was on the video, but then it was on the video. And so this was a huge, powerful strike because it was strong enough to short right up the
Oh,
big
wow.
cable of the
Mhm.
cell tower. And so anyway, I put it on YouTube, and it's still there.
Oh
But it
my
was
goodness.
a very close lightning strike.
I'd love to see that. Is it under your
Yeah.
name or is it
It's under the name of McCammon Farms,
okay?
McCammon Farm Creek, I think it is.
I'll look that up.
And so this was, it told about the UFO events I've had in my life. And
Mhm.
I've always been in the field of science. And they always say scientists don't see UFOs and all that. So I was contradicting that.
Mhm.
And then my next one was Beyond Pascagoula. And
Yes, I'm
I,
excited about that one.
yeah. Philip Mantle and I have done a lot of research on it. He's mainly been doing it. It was the Pascagoula abduction, which made the news quite a bit. And we found many, many, many other witnesses. And it was one of the most witnessed one to start with, and one of the best known one. And so we've been continuing to explore it. And a lot of what was in this was about that there was a strange sound that happened at the same time as the abduction,
Mhm.
and something that I couldn't explain scientifically. It was heard about across about half the country, and it made the newspapers right across the country because people were running out of their houses thinking there was an explosion right there and everything. And I could name it across the country, and it just didn't make sense in physics at all because it was way wider than a airplane, whatever you call them, sonic boom.
Sonic boom. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it stretched over several states. And so there was no explanation whatsoever for it. And I went into quite a bit of detail about that. And then my last one was Beyond Reasonable Doubt. And
Amazing book. Amazing.
yeah, it is, because it's about abductions. And most abductions are like somebody's out in the woods by themselves with no witnesses, and a UFO comes down and abducts them, and then they can't say anything about it because there's no documentation at all. Well,
Right.
this one,
It was so widespread.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a whole lot of people in town had seen it, and the police said that they had about 50 reports that very night of people saying something's weird is flying around. So there were a lot of witnesses, and it turned out that besides the persons that have reported the abductions, there were another couple of people that were on the other side of the river. And at first,
That was the crazy part to me. What
Yeah.
happened with them?
well, I interviewed the woman, and she kept saying something weird happened, but she didn't know what it was. And
Mhm.
she said that her husband was walking down the pier to the boat, and she was following him, and something flopped up on the pier right in front of her.
I remember that one. I remember that one. Oh, that was so creepy. It gave me chills. Just now.
It was really creepy to her,
Yes.
and she was really emotional about it. And I talked to her for about a year. She didn't know why she was so emotional, but she and her husband went to the boat, and then they started down about 9, and she got back about 12,
Mhm.
and she never
Mhm.
explained where this time went to.
Yeah.
And she said she was just terrified running back, and ran back and jumped in her car. Well, then I talked to her for about a year, and she just didn't know what she was scared. But then her husband, unfortunately, became very sick, and even more unfortunately, he died.
Mhm.
But he had been a skeptic this whole time and said, there's nothing to UFOs, don't believe it. It's, and when he was thinking he was about to die, he decided to change his direction.
Mhm.
So he told her that they had been abducted and that he knew about it, but that he had never talked about it because people make fun of you when you say things like that.
Say you're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he remembered it. And not only that, but he'd had kind of some kind of a deal with the aliens that they wouldn't hurt her.
Oh.
And so anyway, she didn't exactly remember it consciously. Later they hypnotized her, and she said that the aliens were taking eggs and things like that and making themselves into people because they wanted to be among us as people.
Yeah.
Although we wouldn't know it. And so she said they were out driving cars and everything else.
Wow.
So it was a pretty amazing because there were all these other witnesses, and they had a list of the names of the other witnesses, and Hurricane, let me see, Katrina, I guess, destroyed it. But we were interviewing witnesses, and a lot of people had seen it and described what they saw and that sort of thing. We're still collecting information on it.
Wow. That's
And there was a
Amazing.
huge UFO wave or flap at that time too that went all over the country. So it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, when we sat down and talked to Philip about everything, he like told the story so like elegantly. I was like, I have to read this. I'm getting it now. I'm starting it now because this is amazing.
wow.
What was, and I got to interview the people, and you know, when you talk to them, you hear their expressions and everything.
Yeah.
So that, you know, I had a very sincere feeling about everybody I talked to. I didn't think anybody was making anything up. And especially the two other witnesses, because it took her over a year and she just remembered something happened, but she didn't know what it was. And then finally her husband said that. And I don't think she was too thrilled about that.
I'm sure she wasn't. I would have been angry. I'd be like, why didn't you tell me?
Why'd you tell me sooner? I was over here thinking I was nuts.
It would freak her out or something, but
She
wow.
went through all this stress and everything, and he didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And like that existential dread that she didn't know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can
Well-
see why in a way, because as a man, he had to go out and work. And, you know, if you're a man and you're working, well, people will really harass you. And if you're a female, they may just, you know, mildly harass you.
Yeah.
And he was her husband was her husband was working on a boat, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. They were sitting in a car waiting because his supervisor was supposed to get there, and they were going out on a boat to supply some of the oil rigs in the Gulf. And his supervisor was late because there was a storm or something. And so when they started out, they were both sitting there, and he went to sleep. But she was watching, and she kept seeing this thing flying around, and she didn't know what it was. And she kept thinking, it's an airplane, and the pilot is lost. And it just kept flying around like it wasn't going anyplace, and like it was searching for something.
And they were almost like right across the river from the two gentlemen, weren't they?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And her husband wasn't, you know, unusual for not talking about it, because one of the witnesses didn't talk about it for about 50 years too.
Wow.
Yeah, the one gentleman wanted to talk all about it, but the other wouldn't.
Well, the one gentleman was older. He was in his 40s, and he'd been in the war, and he'd been in life and death situations. And so compared to life and death situations, he thought he could probably handle being ridiculed and having everybody, you know, see you're crazy and everything. The other man was a teenager, and he had his
Oh,
whole life
okay.
ahead of him. Plus, he was engaged and he wanted to get married, and he didn't want to, have everybody say you're crazy and all that. So he
Right.
was in a different position in life, and he didn't talk about it for about 50 years, and finally he wrote 2 books under Philip Mantle with
which
encouragement from his wife and Philip.
is
Yeah.
almost kind of surprises me a little bit that it wasn't the other way around. You'd think the younger one might be more apt to want to talk about it than the older one.
Well, I don't know, because the older man, he'd been in bad situations where he could have got killed, and they were shipyard employees, and I don't think that's the ideal place to be. Say, oh, I saw that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
anyway, the younger man was just absolutely stressed beyond anything. His wife said he had a tick in his mouth and he had a nervous breakdown, wound up in the hospital, and everything
Oh,
else.
gosh.
Oh,
It's probably
God.
because he didn't talk about it.
Well,
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
All the
didn't
stress from keeping it inside.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, he
wasn't
said
it to the younger one that they appeared to him more human when
Well,
they came to like
they
talk with him per se?
they both thought they were mechanical things instead of
Oh.
beings, and they were about 5 feet tall. They looked like some kind of machines, and they took him in
Huh.
and had like a big eye that scanned them. But the younger man later under hypnosis said that there was also a female in there that talked to him and
Hmm.
stuck a claw down his nose.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
goodness.
He
Wow.
could remember it under hypnosis, but he couldn't remember it not under hypnosis,
Well,
correct?
he later said he did remember it, not under hypnosis, but he didn't say anything about it until he was hypnotized. So I don't know. He was very, very stressed though about the whole
Yeah.
thing.
I would think that would be scary enough to
Oh, heck
make
yeah.
you not want to talk about it.
Well,
Yes, and you almost may wonder, like, if you talk about it, if they'll come back. What if they
Yeah.
know what you're talking about somehow, and
Oh, yeah.
you talk about them or let people know, and then they come back to destroy you?
Oh, yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
point.
Yeah.
I didn't think
they were
about that.
both very, very scared. At first, they decided not to say anything, and then the
Yeah.
older man thought, "Well, maybe this is part of an invasion. Maybe they're going to get other people. We should talk about it." The younger man said, "No, no, no, no,
He was
no."
like,
Yeah, he's like, no way.
And so the older man did talk about it, but I talked to his son, and he didn't try to make money on it or anything. He was on TV and everything, but he thought he was doing something useful. He thought it was something that people should know about, which I think, I agree with him.
I do too.
the more we know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's well, I think it's kind of odd that the government tried for so long to cover everything up, but I guess there are people that would lose their minds about the
Knowing
knowledge
the
of,
truth.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the government covered up. Right at first, government did not cover it up. On the first year, they had projects signed where they actually investigated things. They considered that these are something besides us,
Mhm.
and did a real good investigation. Then from about 1948 on until just a couple of years ago, the government said, no, they don't exist, nothing, everybody that sees them is crazy, which is a stupid thing to say,
It
because
really is.
that for sure. And then finally they said just a little bit that maybe they might exist because airplanes pilots were seeing them,
Yeah.
real top people.
They've been seeing
not
them
that
for
everybody
years.
else is, people that had a lot to lose were saying, yeah, we saw something.
Mhm.
And so they finally had, airplane pictures and things like that. But I had
Yeah.
worked for the DIA, and I think they had good pictures way, way back.
Oh,
But
yeah.
someplace in the government they knew something about it.
They definitely had witness evidence because pilots have been talking about it. The pirates have been talking about it for a long time. I mean, they had pilot recordings talking about it for a long way back, like in the
Mhm.
probably 70s.
Well, they acted like they didn't have anything. Like I had worked for Battelle, and I knew some of the people concerned in that. And Battelle
Mhm.
Memorial Institute did a study for Project Blue Book. It was
Mhm.
top secret at the time, and nobody was supposed to know about it. While the government was saying that UFOs don't exist, there's nothing to it. Well, they also were having Battelle Memorial Institute do this big study, and Battelle's a real top organization. I mean, it does a lot of government contract work and things like that. Well, I had an article published in the MUFON Journal called Disclosure. It came right out before the government did their sort of
Oh,
disclosure. But this was way back in the 1950s.
yeah.
And somebody had very carefully, the head of the project had written to Project Blue Book and said, our data isn't ready. Don't have anybody say anything about it. Well, somebody very carefully made several copies of this thing and left it in places where people could find it. So it was actually the first disclosure, and it was a real good disclosure because it showed the government was having a secret study
Mhm.
while they were saying that nothing exists. And it just showed, the government was lying, but it
Mhm.
also had real good ideas on how to study UFOs too. So it
Mhm.
was the original disclosure. It was way, way back. But even then, in 1952, there was a big flap over Washington, D.C., where people saw UFOs. They saw them
Yeah.
on radar. They had radar visuals. They had airplanes chasing them and everything else. And the government said, no, they didn't exist, which is
I watched
ridiculous.
the Project Blue Book show on Netflix. I'm not sure how accurate it was, but it was very good. And they showed the UFOs flying over Washington and around the oh, what is the
The Capitol?
around the Capitol building and out down through the city. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
and I mean, it's ridiculous that they said. I mean, I suppose everybody believed them because nobody knew anything about it. But said this was due to an inversion layer, that there was a layer of
Mm.
oxygen. Well, once I was in an inversion layer right here in Ohio, in central Ohio, once there was a huge inversion layer that went all over. I mean, you walk out the door and about choke to death because the air wasn't circulating right. And nobody saw UFOs. I mean, that was ridiculous.
Oh yeah, of course. You're crazy.
Well, the being in the with you, we're talking about being in the blue room. Reminded me a lot, or a good bit about Bob Lazar's story.
Mm.
I was curious on your opinion on what he says he saw.
Yeah, I don't know because my husband also worked in Area 51, and he told me about it before I ever heard of Area 51, so I didn't know what he was
Oh.
talking about. And
Wow.
unfortunately, he's dead, and I have all kinds of questions to ask him that I didn't think of when he
Yeah.
was alive. But he said, he told me way, way back that it was all underground and everything. But now, it's like, he's dead, so I can't ask him.
You're like,
You know,
why?
so I don't know. Yeah, about Bob Lazar, I don't know. He knew about Area 51 and all that, but
Mhm.
I just couldn't say because my husband, I would have asked him a lot more detailed questions if he came
Absolutely.
back to life or something, but unfortunately.
Or like him saying like he saw actual pieces like of a spaceship of some kind.
Yeah, he saw like a sports model and things like that. And I don't think my husband saw anything like that. He said that they were developing new airplanes there and that they had them undercover, a lot of them, and that he had a real high clearance, but he said he wasn't even allowed to go look under the covers, and so he didn't know.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having that much clearance?
Huh?
Yeah,
No.
crazy.
Like having that
Oh.
and not being able to say anything?
Yeah.
Oh my, I don't
Oh.
have enough willpower.
I think I would, but
I'd be sitting home like,
yeah,
I have to
yes.
tell somebody.
Well, Lazar, he supposedly was like target what stalked or whatever.
Who?
well, yeah, because he started.
Lazar. Well,
Yeah, he started
he ran
running.
his mouth.
Yeah.
Well, I had a high clearance, and it was pretty scary because way back then they said there was this huge fine and
Mhm.
jail time forever and all that. So it put the fear of whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, fear of jail.
You know what?
or whatever.
I mean, I didn't say anything. I was supposed to disappear, and I didn't say anything about the clearance.
Yes, yes. Being
Now,
disappeared.
something I was really curious about is you had put that you had used to be a volunteer. Oh shoot! I literally just lost the word. I'm gonna have to look it up now. My ADHD's kicking in, and I can't remember what the freaking word was.
Oh.
A volunteer astrologist, was it?
No.
No.
It was a volunteer astronomer.
Oh,
at-
astronomer.
yeah.
Okay.
I was close. I was
Yeah,
close.
totally different. Totally different.
The word was in the same area. That's
Yeah,
as much as I could get.
Had Astro in it.
No, it was
Yeah.
But where I worked at was what was called Big Ear. It was the Ohio State University radio telescope, and it's famous because they got what was called the WOW signal, where they intercepted this signal that might have been from aliens. They've never explained the signal at all. So it was an interesting place to work, and I met the people that noticed the WOW signal and everything.
Oh, that's awesome.
It no longer exists, though, because Ohio State University sold the land under the telescope to be a golf course, so they pulled the telescope off and moved
Oh,
it
that's
to some
course.
barn.
Because golf is so much more important.
Well,
Yeah.
it's more money.
Yeah,
Oh, golly,
true.
that's horrible.
Yeah.
Man.
How does one volunteer for something like that? Is it just because the school had the program, or?
I don't remember. I just don't remember how I volunteered, but I got to work there, which I was real happy about. I had majored in astronomy, but I wasn't allowed to apply for jobs in astronomy because they didn't take females back then.
Oh,
And
my
so I
goodness.
didn't get to work in the field. And so I was very happy to be a volunteer astronomer.
That's
You,
cool.
you probably had to have the credentials, right? So to be certain or to volunteer in certain areas.
Yeah, I think I had the credentials, and I just don't remember how I got there, but I was real happy it was.
I'm sure. I bet it was interesting.
Oh, it was, because it was SETI looking for extraterrestrial signals.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
You looked through all this data, and you were supposed to see anything that looked weird, and the WOW
Mhm.
signal definitely was weird, but I wasn't the
Yeah.
one that found it.
Yeah. So was that an actual sound they could hear, or was it just
Oh, no, it was a radio signal.
A
I mean,
radio-
it was a radio telescope, and
right?
so,
So it was just showed like a pattern, wave pattern.
yeah, like electronics,
wave.
it was real high,
Okay.
and it went in such a format that they could tell they were picking up on the telescope and things.
Okay. I always wondered about that.
That's so cool.
That's neat.
And my latest book is Aliens and the Apocalypse.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's like,
There you go.
I
yeah,
bet that's interesting.
Yeah.
and it's really timely right now.
Mhm.
It came out on
Yeah.
August the 1st, and about that time, a female started running for president. And this was kind of like what it was about, because
Yeah.
I was saying that usually you think of astronauts as males and big men with like spacesuits on and
Mhm.
breathing apparatus and everything going around, you know. And you'd think if aliens were here, they'd be like that. They'd be big, you know, things with weapons and things that land and say, "Take me to your leader."
Yeah.
And instead, the people that report UFOs seem to report small beings that look like females that are kind of skinny and look like females or kids.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not displaying weapons, and they're not have breathing apparatus like you expect on another planet. In fact, they're not even wearing clothes usually.
Well, they
And
don't need weapons because they have so much more mind power than we do.
well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I talked to some of the men that worked in the missiles, and I guess there was this a couple of instances where we had these big silos of missiles that
Mhm.
aimed at Russia and everything, and these UFOs, the people reported, and I talked to one of the people that was in charge of one group of them. I forget his name. There were two people, and both of them wrote books. But anyway, they said these things flew over, and the targeting on the missiles was changed, and they
Yep.
couldn't have sent off the missiles. And nobody could understand why the government didn't pay attention to that, because
Mhm.
that's our big thing is our missiles and fighting.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
And so anyway, with this, I had pictures of the aliens. They had molds and things in Roswell. And Roswell kind of is where the idea of aliens piloting spaceships and everything started. And the aliens there look very, very female.
Ah.
And in a lot of other instances, they're female sized and, not big muscles or anything. And so I was saying maybe this was a message in itself that humans should pay more attention to females. And right now, we're solving our problems with ways that make our problems worse. I mean, the apocalypse is the end of the world, and we've always thought of that as an asteroid coming out or a volcano. But one thing that can really do us in is our own weapons, and there's more chance of that than anything else right now, probably. And so I was saying that maybe they're saying that maybe maybe they should pay more attention to females and our ability to get along instead of males
Yeah.
fighting
Yes.
behavior.
Yeah.
There's so much hatred in the world. I always thought if it did just become public that aliens existed, would it bring humans as a society closer together and get rid of some of the hatred in the world, in our communities, and prejudices and such? Like, do you think that would bring us as a human race closer together if we knew there was something else out there? If everyone knew and believed?
Well, that's what Ronald Reagan said. Nobody paid too much attention to him. They sort of
Yeah.
laughed at him. Well, there's aliens, and maybe they could, do something to us. Well,
Mhm.
if it was us taking the way we take over
Country.
a society that's less able to fight back, is we just come in with the conquistador and take them over, and that's a bad thing. And it doesn't appear that the aliens are doing that, although we don't know.
Right.
But this needs to be looked at and explored. And we have these males that are running things, and they're saying, "Oh, they don't exist." Well, that's because the males want to be on top. It's their ego. And so nothing else can be flying around doing anything they want to. Where our Air Force and everything can't do anything about it. But yes, I think it would be very, very useful if the subject were explored in a lot more detail.
Somehow, as a society, we would still find a way to argue against each other
Probably.
about it.
Probably.
Yeah.
Now, Project Bluebeam, that's the one where they fake a alien invasion. Have you heard anything about that? Or
No, what about it?
I mean, have you ever heard of it?
No. I
haven't?
may have, but I don't. If I do, I don't remember.
Project Bluebeam, I've heard a lot of people talk about that. It's where the government fakes an alien invasion to bring the people. I mean, pretty much the people to heal, I guess you'd say, and kind of
Yeah.
bring them under control for the most part, martial law and all that.
Yeah.
So they feel the need to fake aliens landing to get everybody in line.
Yes. I mean, it's out there if you want.
Oh,
on the
I
internet.
fully
On the internet,
believe
if
you.
ever read about it. I've heard of it for
I
years.
fully believe you. It's just like, seriously,
Yeah.
you're going to go
Yeah.
that far to whip everybody into shape?
Well,
I mean, they've done other things like that. I mean, it's right up there.
but
Shoot, they're going to start drugging us again and not telling us.
Yeah, well, that's true too.
We took the jab willingly last time. Irena, I got a question. Were you ever in contact with any of these beings, creatures, whatever you want to call them?
I don't know, because my sister and I had several sightings together, and I've had several sightings. I always had other people, so I was really, really, really happy, because if you see it by yourself, you can't, you're imagining things. So I had other witnesses, and the other witnesses always said, yeah, they saw them. My sister and I, years before we ever heard of UFOs, had some kind of an encounter in our bedroom with this thing. It was just when we were very tiny kids, and we were poor. All we had was a radio, and my parents just played particular things, so we'd never heard of UFOs or anything like that. And I woke up, and this thing was flying around the room, and I had no idea what it was. It was just a little thing. It would look like hot metal. It was just flying around, and I was just a kid, and I had no idea what it was, and I was watching it and thought this was interesting. And then I noticed that the room was dark. It was summer, and for reasons I know, that there wasn't any electrical storm going on or anything like that. And it was flying around. I realized that it knew where things were, even though the room was dark. I mean, it came to a wall and it turned. If it came to furniture, it turned and went around. And it came close to us several times. And, I just wondered what it was. And it was just kind of browsing around. Then it flew up the ceiling, and it didn't hit the ceiling. It flew across the ceiling. I mean, well, it was an attic room, and the walls came together, and there was about 3 feet between them. And there was a chandelier in the middle of the room. And it flew, and it was turned off. It flew over the chandelier, and it knew just where it was, and it began to circle. It didn't hit any walls or any chandelier or anything. It just circled and circled and circled. And then it came down in a spiral. Well, suddenly, when it got down, just about under the chandelier, we both became absolutely terrified and started screaming and ran out of the room. And we were so scared, we fell down the stair steps. We were so terrified we couldn't get the door open. We went screaming to our parents, who said, you just imagined it. But if it happened to one of us, you'd believe them that we imagined it, but it happened to both of us. And it was like it had some mental control over something, because we both had woken up. The thing was in the room. We had no idea how it got in the room. And then we watched it. And then suddenly we were just terrified beyond reason, just horribly terrified. So it was like it had some kind of mental power over us. And many years later, I read this book by I can't find it, by Jenny Randalls called Star Children. And she said that people that have repeat sightings of UFOs often start out with seeing tiny little UFOs in their bedrooms when they're kids. Well,
Yeah.
we fit that really well. And she even mentioned us in the book. And it mostly happens to one person at a time. And my sister and I had this happen to us when we were tiny kids. And then again, we had a really large UFO event later on together.
Wow, that's
Some
fascinating.
connection.
Well, they do say that if you have experience with aliens or extraterrestrials, it does start at a young age. So they're interested in the human race at a young age, and as we age, I assume. But were you ever on any military bases outside or near Washington, D.C., where any of this was going on?
Well, I was on Wright-Patterson because my employer sent me several times, and I was in a secured area and everything, to conferences and things. It wasn't about UFOs, but I met the archivist, and he did take me into UFO meetings and things on Wright-Patterson. But I'd been in the Pentagon, and I'd worked for the DIA for a number of years, and I had some of their top clearances.
Wow, that's pretty. We had somebody on the show here recently that talked about they had a client who worked in a part of Area 51 where they were actually working alongside the Greys, and that it was quite traumatic because he wasn't prepared for what he saw.
That's what a lot of people say. And I just, when I was at Patterson, I really wish I could have gone in a building and looked around. But when I was there by myself and my employer sent me, well, I just took off on my own and started taking pictures, and I put them in the book. But so far as when I was in the Blue Room building, well, I was very well escorted, so I couldn't just wander around and see things. But I didn't see aliens or anything like that. There were stories about them and stories about underground chambers. And I had also taken pictures on the base of digging in Wright-Patterson of things like that, where people had, informants had said, well, there's underground bases there. And I had seen, machines digging there too. But I didn't get out of my car closely. I was in trouble.
Something I was just thinking about when you said that your husband had worked at Area 51. At the time, were they ever, or did he ever mention that they were talking about moving things from there?
No.
And I figure that was before it became, it was really Area 51 and people were super interested, as they are now. But I was just curious if maybe it had been in the talks for a while, because what is it? They're talking, everything's moved out of Area 51 and is somewhere in Ohio now, I think it is.
They've spread it out.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories that there's bodies at Wright-Patterson. And like I was kind of looking for, like this one man, he wrote a book. I think this is it. Collins, he wrote a book about it was declassified, and we'd talked to him, we'd interviewed him. He didn't remember us at all, but we remembered him, and we wrote it up. And he had told us about places in Wright-Patterson where they had the bodies and things like that. And so once when I was there, I paid attention to where he said. And he said there was this one little building there that is an entrance to the underground chamber. And I took pictures of it. And then he said that this, I forget which building it was, but there was one where they had big elevators and you could go down into these chambers with trucks. And so I was in a position where I could get a picture of it without that wouldn't show up to the public. And it had a big ramp going up into the building. It looked like a 3-lane highway and these big doors. And so it looked definitely like a truck could go down the building. And he said that trucks could go down in there and then go down an elevator and go to the inner chambers. And I found things, I had pictures of digging over where those chambers are supposed to be. But I didn't get to go there myself, and I wouldn't have, got out of the car and looked because I'd have been in bad trouble.
You are such an amazing person. This is so cool.
This is like my dream.
Yes. Yes. I mean, you are just like a leader for women. All you've done. Just, you're amazing.
Well, I was telling a lot in my last book about things people don't know about females. And like now we've got just amazingly, a female president comes out the same time as my book came out. Well, I was saying that in nature, usually females are the leaders, and like they present groups of animals as the male harem. Well, they're not male harems. They're groups of females that have a temporary male attached. And I mean, like a pride of lions is a group of female lions. They're all related. They're the leaders and the organizers and everything. The males, fight to get in, and they're in for a while and they're out. And the pride of lions is actually females. The same for elephants and a whole lot of things. And I was saying that humans most likely started the same way as all the other mammals, in groups of females. And there's a lot of evidence for that because all the original art, prehistoric art is mainly pictures of females. The first carvings are pictures of females. The cave drawings have imprints that are females. They're not males out, throwing spears and things. And so I was saying that, probably females originated the human race, and we didn't do it by sharpening, rocks and spearing animals. The way we did it was by being able to symbolize things and invent the ability to think in symbols. And that's a much stronger ability than, being a carnivore and killing animals. And so that's what I talked about in the book, that maybe the aliens were telling us that we needed to pay attention to other aspects of us instead of solving our aggressive nature by making bigger bombs and trying to kill more people.
Yes,
I agree.
Well, and two, what you had mentioned in your other book about what they had, the lady that was under hypnosis, that they were either like bringing their eggs or leaving them here so that those could like infiltrate the human race. So who knows?
Yeah, do you believe they do walk among us?
Well, I don't think we'd know. Some theories of the universe are that it's 26 billion years old and Earth is 4 billion years old. And so there could be, just life forms that are just, that we can't even begin to comprehend. And, we're probably just primitive little chemical reactions wandering around on Earth and things.
We're at the lower end of the totem pole on that one.
We could be.
Absolutely, yeah. And then you get into other thing like quantum theory, where there may be races or not races, dimensions beside ours that we're just parallel to. So there's all kinds of theories out there.
Well, with quantum theory, I mean, it throws everything we think is logical just out the window, because there's evidence in the entangled particles that a particle on one end of the universe could instantly know what its entangled particle on the other side of the universe is doing. Well, in that case, our ideas of time and space are like nothing. And there's questions about gravity and everything else that we just don't understand at all, which, are standard physics and everything, but they don't make sense when you really think about quantum theory and things like that.
No, once you get to the quantum level, it's like everything changes perspective. So, well, Irene, tell everybody where Irena, I apologize. Tell everybody where they can get your books, because some of the people in the chat were interested in where they can find your works.
Well, my books are on Amazon.com, and I have a website, irenascott.com, irenascottbothtogether.com. And you can click on a book and it goes to the Amazon.com website. And you can also look at the Flying Disc Press website, and they're listed on there too.
Okay.
So they're easy to order.
I promise we only keep you for about an hour, and I want to keep to that. Sorry I was backstage for a lot of this. I've enjoyed the conversation, and I would like to continue it sometime down the road if you're open to that.
I certainly am.
Back.
That'd be great.
Oh, we should get you and Philip together so we can all.
That would be great.
He is really good, and
He really is.
Yeah. At 10 o'clock tonight on the Discovery Channel, my team is going to actually be on a show, and we're going to finally reveal the Cube video that we've been sitting on since, I don't know, 4 years ago. So I was a part of that. Yeah. Comes
Wait,
on at 10
why-
o'clock on Discovery. So
Why are we just now hearing about this?
Because it's 10 o'clock. We knew we wouldn't come on here.
because it's 10 o'clock. So yeah.
On it.
Yeah, it's on Discovery right now. Our leader, Trey Hudson, he also works with Philip, wrote the book The Meadow Project. And so tonight,
Also, fantastic book. Thank you, Trey.
yes, I read it.
so yeah, tonight is our episode to premiere. Sorry guys, I had to sit on it. All right, Irena, I appreciate it. I will keep in touch with you. I will see if Shay can make it happen with you and Philip. That would be great.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Philip has been so excellent to us too, with sending us people that he knows we love to talk to. So he has been fabulous to us.
Yes.
He definitely is. What time is this Discovery Channel?
It's coming on in 40 seconds. So
Better go.
All right,
Now I'm like,
guys,
dang it, I
guys.
gotta re-download Discovery Plus.
Everything is done for a reason, intent. So yeah, we had to sit on it and knock it.
So
can
now I
say-
gotta watch Big Brother and this.
I'm sorry. Irena, have a great night. We will keep in touch with you. Thanks for
Thank you,
coming.
Irena.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so
Ian.
much.
I think it'll be
Thank
good to be
you.
on Philip.
All right.
Yes,
good evening.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Yeah,
Good night.
that was
I
great.
love her.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Oh my
So awesome.
Yes.
That was
Yes, women's rights in the aliens. Yes.
Can't wait for your books.
Women aliens are going to kick ass.
Yeah, she did, I'm pretty sure, the vast majority, from what I recall, from what Philip said, she did the vast majority of the research, but interviews over here for everything that happened in Pascagoula?
Pascagoula. Yeah.
Pascagoula, yeah.
Well, our next guest has arrived backstage, so I'm going to bring him out. Bruce, or should I call you Doctor, or is it okay to call you Bruce?
Bruce, please, just Bruce.
Dr. Bruce.
Bruce, welcome to the show, The Paranormal Guys. These are, I'm Charlie, and these are my angels.
Yeah, see, what we have just now discovered, though, is we are the harem of lions.
Well, y'all are running the show, it
Lionesses.
seems to me.
Okay, that's the way it works. Yeah. I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, I've been married a long time. I've learned the rules. Bruce, you've put out some great works too. Can you tell us about some of your books and your stuff?
Whoa, well, yeah, I mean, I've published a lot of books and history books, political science. That's my thing. But
And
then
comic books.
and comic books.
Yeah.
That's probably my proudest achievement is the comic books. So But yeah, in 2016, my career took a turn in that I was no longer afraid to hide my paranormal experiences and alien experiences and abductions and all that stuff. So it was a friend of mine passed away, a dear friend of mine from Seattle. We grew up together, and he came to me in a vision, which I had all the time since I was a kid, and told me it was time to start telling my stories in public. And so I decided to do it. And then I just started, I collected all my experiences, written them all down in stories form and just hadn't told anybody. So then I started publishing my Timeless books. So there's 3 of those, Timeless, Deja Vu, and Timeless Trinity. And each one got progressively more strange, because I was kind of dipping my toes in the paranormal publicly, and wanted to get a reaction. Turned out okay. The second one, I added more stuff. The third one, I started letting it all go. And then now I've written 2 more paranormal books. One that focuses on a particular NIH or NHI. I'm sorry. The non-human intelligence named Anzar. So I wrote a book called Anzar the Progenitor. And then the latest one is We Are the Aliens. So I just go right for it, here and just say what we are. But I didn't come up with that title. Actually, didn't come up with any of these titles. My friend Gene, who passed away in 2016, he was the one who suggested Timeless as a good title, for the books, because he said where he was in the other world was there's no future, there's no past. It's all just happening at the same time. So he said, why don't you call it Timeless? And I said, okay, that sounds good. And so there are 3 of those books. And so, yeah, so that's, and then the comic books are interesting because they have to do with aliens, so to speak. And there's a whole thing about the word aliens, that we can get into. But so one of them is called Snark, and he's a character I came up with in probably 1981 when I was in the Army in Germany. And then when I went to engineering school, after I got out of the Army, I wrote and illustrated like a comic series in a school newspaper at Montana Tech, a Snark series. I did 5 of those, and then I dropped out of engineering school, and that was the end of Snark until 37 years later when I published it as a full-up comic book. So, and now there's a spin-off comic book called Dr. Jekyll Alien Hunter, which features a female lead character. And yeah, so I really love comic books. That's how I learned how to read. I was lucky my mom allowed me to read have comic books. So that's how I learned how to read. I wouldn't be a professor if it wasn't for comic books. So I really owe probably my whole livelihood to comic books. So it's an homage. It's a labor of love. And but I keep, I'm keep writing, I keep writing books. I'm actually writing a history book for a change. It's a early American history book. I call it an anti-textbook because it's very different than the dry textbooks you get that we have had to use over the years teaching. So in fact, I dedicate a chapter to the rise of spiritualism in America, which you won't find in too many standard history books in American history. So it's very, very important part of it. And anyway, that's some of my publishing stuff that I've done. And it's, I'm learning all the time, and coming on shows like yours and other shows, it challenges me because you guys always ask great questions and makes me think a little bit differently. So when I explore these topics and make contact with the non-human intelligence that I talk to on a regular basis, I can ask him different questions. And yeah, so I just opened up a whole can of worms there, didn't I? So
that's why we're here. Well, Irena was just the guest before you, which we're all UFO tonight, was talking about how she feels in her theories that they live amongst us and
Yeah.
that we don't really know it. What do you think
Yeah.
about that?
Yes. In fact, the title of my book is "We Are the Aliens." So the idea is that we are all alien human hybrids. That's how we were seeded. And this is according to, well, there's a lot of people that talk about this, but the contact I have, I am connected to him, he's connected to me, and we're all connected together. That's why I brought up the term alien before. He doesn't like the word alien. And one time I had a spirit connection with him, and I said, so do I call you an alien? And he said, well, why don't you look it up in the dictionary and see what you think? So after I was done with my spirit walk, as I call it, when I communicate with him, I came back home, looked it up. None of the definitions are good. I don't know if you've looked at the definition. We use the term all the time, but none of them are positive. Something that's alien is not usually good. So next time I said, well, what do you prefer to be called? And he said, star family, which was interesting to me because historically indigenous people use that terminology, whether it's Native Americans or Aborigines in Australia, they use that, the star people, star family. That's what they use. And it's very acceptable to them. It's not shocking or new to them. This is what they have been connected to, for thousands of years. And we just have left it behind in modern society. So yes, they're with us. They have been, they are, and they will be. So.
Wow. Now, when you, excuse me, when you have contact with them and you do your spirit walking, what type of, can you see this creature? Or is this all a mind connection?
Well, if you're talking about like you and I are seeing each other right now, not exactly, although I have seen him, and usually I hear him. So, or sometimes I will see like messages, or he'll give me like imagery, sometimes like a little video, almost like a or a holographic image. I've seen him in a holographic image. I've had people in a CERO meeting. I'm not sure if you're familiar with CERO. It's Close Encounter Research Organization. It's headed by Yvonne Smith. It's an international organization, and I'm a member of it. And I invited Anzar, that's his name, Anzar, to a meeting in I think it was Huntington Beach, where we had the meeting here in Southern California. And I asked him to come, and then after the meeting, I asked, did anybody see anybody with me? And most people were just, they were getting ready to go and whatever. They weren't saying anything. And then this one lady was eating her French fries. Her name is Lucy. She's a friend of mine. And she's a shaman in the Native American tradition. And she looks up from her French fries, looks past me and says, yeah, who's the big native dude behind you? That's what she said, a native dude. And I said, well, that's Anzar. And he's very tall. And sometimes he looks kind of like a Native American. Sometimes he looks very classical alien. I mean, he can look in, different ways. And she said, you're kidding. That's his name, Anzar? And I said, yeah. And she took out her driver's license. And on her driver's license, her address was Via de Anzar. That was the name of her street, which means the way to Anzar. So we became close friends, and she helped me kind of integrate with Anzar. So, not that I'm no longer me, but I'm part him, part me. We're, as he says, an aspect of you is an aspect of me. So that's who I communicate with, in addition to family members, people that I have friends and colleagues that ask me to connect to people who have passed away, kind of a classic mediumship kind of thing. I never ask for money. I'm not mad at people who do that. If they ask for money to do it, I never ask for money. I just say, I don't want it, because I'm not always right. I don't always make a connection. It's not a perfect thing. So sometimes it's very good. And sometimes it's like an old radio. You can't get tuned in. And so Anzar's, I'm kind of all over the place here, but it's exciting to me to talk about this stuff. So Anzar is one of the entities I speak with. Gene, my friend who passed on in 2016, I talked to him. and there's many others. So I have to control it though, because when I first started doing the spirit walks, shortly after that vision with Gene, about a year later, I started doing spirit walks. I didn't do any protection. I didn't do any, like guidance. I didn't like ask for help. And what
Yes.
happened, it's kind of like if you ever been to a concert where people are lined up and they open one door and everybody tries to go through at the same time. That's what the spirits were doing. And I don't know who these spirits are. Are they, are they good? Are they not so good? Are they malevolent? There's all kinds of things out there. And so it was kind of overwhelming. So I learned my lesson. You have to be very careful to do my protection. I have a couple of spirit guides who help me, kind of like bouncers at the door, and that helps me. And then I make my connection, and I do it in a very, to me, it's a sacred spot. It just looks like a road to other people around here in the neighborhood, but it's an old road. I call it an Indian medicine road that goes up into the mountains, into the San Gabriel Mountains. And it kind of steep. And I walk up there, and the connection is always stronger there. And I was always curious why it was so much stronger there. And then I saw at the base of that road, the very beginning of that road, as it goes up into the mountains, there is a what do you call it? Not the Shriners, but the they're also Shriners, but
Mason?
the Freemasons
Yes.
have a temple there. And there's a wash there. In California, we got these washes, right? They're usually empty, but when it rains, there's water in there. But there was at one time a river there. And so their temple is right at the base of this wash of this road that goes up into the mountains, which, of course, almost all of our roads were Indian paths, or before that, animal paths, or both. So it's a sacred medicine road, and that's where I can make the connection the clearest. Although I can do it in my house or wherever I am, it's just always a little bit easier to do it there. And so I call it walking meditation or spirit walk. And so that's how I do
it. A deep meditative state, or are you still somewhat aware of your surroundings?
That's a good question, because when I first did them, I did not record anything. So I'd come back and I'd say, okay, I'm going to write down what happened. Well, what happened? I don't really remember too much. I remember some, so I started taking my little phone and just doing the voice recorder. And it's not that I hear I don't record their voices. I wish that would be great. But although there's some strange sounds sometimes, but I can't verify that. But what I do is whatever I see or hear or whatever, I will, record. I'll say, okay, this is what they said. I answer a question, or I ask a question, they answer. This is what they said. So I record the whole thing. So when I come back, I'll play it back and I'll transcribe it. And I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years, and I have about 350 single-spaced pages of transcripts from all of these spirit communications. And that's what I've used to write. Some of what I've written, is from those spirit communications. And so otherwise I would forget a lot of it, and I would just be really upset with myself because sometimes there's sometimes it's kind of funny. I mean, the Anzar can be funny. Other times it's great insights. Other times it's like paradoxical, and I don't get it until much later, and then maybe I kind of get it. So it's very important to record what I see and hear. And it's not just what I hear, it's also what I see. Like he'll show me imagery, or like I said, like a film clip. Like when I asked him about, what do the aliens want? And then he corrected me again, the star family. And I said, yeah, that's right. He said, well, and then he showed me a film clip of, and I was preparing to write this book about early American history, about the first explorers that came to the New World. Why did they come? And why did all the people explore the West? Were all of them good people? Were all of them had good intentions? No. Some of them had good intentions. Some of them were exploitive. Some of them were very violent. Some were not. Some were peaceful. Some wanted to convert, Native American. So there's all these different motivations. And he showed that to me as kind of a way of answering my question. It's like, in a way I could understand, it's like there's different motivations and different agendas, and although there's more sophistication to it, but obviously, but that was a way that I could understand. Oh, I see. So it's not just one monolithic group that comes in and they're all marching in the same line or whatever, and have the same idea. That's why so many different people have so many different experiences. Experiencers who've had contact with non-human intelligences. It's like there's some similarities, but there's a lot of differences too. And so that I think kind of partially explains it. But anyway, that's what I do. I can't sit still and do meditation. I have to walk and do it. So I'm not totally out, but I'm not, but I do, because I'm focused, what I called focused calm. It's hard to remember the details unless I record it. So that's a long answer to your question. Sorry.
Well, I mean, no, that makes sense, honestly. Well, there's things that technology now they've got. Have you heard of the God helmet?
No, I haven't actually.
Well, it sounds very similar to what you do, and it's a form of remote viewing, but you will put this helmet on and it changes the electrical activity in your brain and basically puts you into a deep sleep. And then the questions will be asked of the person wearing the God helmet, and then they will tell the answers that they get from their connection.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it would probably be a good enhancement. I can do it without that, but I mean, that's just because I've done this my whole life, kind of not really coordinated. It was always all my paranormal experiences before my friend Gene died were all, random, frequent, but random. And I had no management of it. I didn't know how to manage it. It just happened, and I didn't know when it was going to happen. And so I always tell people who are interested, I say, the most important thing is to learn how to turn it off rather than turn it on. Because if you people can learn how to turn it on, but you have to know how to turn it off, because otherwise it could drive you mad. I've had trouble in my life being in like a party situation, especially like a social gathering. And it's not that I'm shy, although I guess I'm kind of a extroverted introvert, I guess the best way to explain it. But it's that I don't hear people's thoughts. I don't read their minds, but I do read their intentions. And that's even scarier, I think, because people think things or say things, but what are they driving at? What do they want? And that's the scary part, because a lot of times you hear stuff you don't want to hear. So I had to learn how to turn that off so I could go to a social gathering and not be overwhelmed. I guess the closest analogy would be folks who are on the spectrum. They have a similar information overload, and I think part of that is, the ability to, what I'm actually talking about. So that I think there's a connection there. In fact, I had a friend of mine who is a psychiatrist, and I asked him once, I said, is it possible that people who have delusions or paranoid delusions, or people that are schizophrenic, are maybe just really, really psychic, but don't know how to control it, don't know how to manage it? And he looked at me with this like shock, and he had never thought about that. And he said, that's a very scary thought. That's very scary thought. And it's a sad.
It is kind of scary.
Yeah. To put what you were talking about in comic book analogy, there was the issue where Superman and Batman, because of, I think, a genie or maybe a voodoo person, switched their abilities and skills, and Batman was going crazy because he could hear everything. He didn't know how to tune it out, and that's what he told him when they switched back. He said, how do you do it? He says, you have to turn them off.
You have to turn it off. Exactly. It's very important. It's like you have a radar dish, and you learn how to, either accidentally, like I used to, and now I can do it on purpose, how to raise the radar dish. It's not actually a radar dish, but that's kind of the analogy I use. So you receive all these signals, and then when you're ready to put it away, you have to envision it going away. And sometimes I would do like a cleansing ritual, I don't subscribe to any particular thing, but I just, I almost do it instinctively now, this kind of turning it off. And so I can just go back to my regular programming, right? My regular life.
I was going to say, what is regular anymore? Everything.
I know that's
Yeah.
exactly right. There's so much going on. It is overwhelming. It's overwhelming for a lot of folks, and especially for people who are very empaths and people who have psychic abilities and the thing is, I teach a paranormal class at my college. That's my day job is I just teach U.S. history, right? But the college, much to my surprise, in 2018, allowed me to teach a paranormal class. And the first class I taught, I had 35 students. It's a non-credit class, so it's not like for college credit, but I had 35 students from all walks of life, every kind of ethnicity, every age from 18 to 80, but they all had one thing in common. They wanted to know what's going on. They wanted to, with them, what is the, what's going on with these experiences, and they didn't feel safe to talk to their colleagues or to their coworkers or even their own families. They were shunned, and a lot of them, and humiliated. So they came into the room with that purpose, is to share. And I learned that very quickly because I had all kinds of lectures planned, like, okay, the basis of telekinesis, this is what we know, this is what scientists believe. And they said, yeah, that's good, but let me tell you what happened to me. So so I quickly learned, okay, we're going to share, and then we're going to just go into some of the different skills or the different things, phenomena, kind of the basis of it. And even I brought in guest lecturers like scientists and members of the clergy and people like that, and even a magician, a professional magician. That was fun. And then we use that as kind of a baseline, and then we go back to sharing. And so that's kind of what I learned.
Where do we sign up?
Yeah, it starts October 1st. Unfortunately, it's in person.
Dang it.
But I told them,
Hey, you can add a Zoom option.
You can.
I told them, I said, I have so many people that I know on, Facebook friends and so forth that want to take the class. And I said, we could easily probably get 100 people or more if we could open it up. And they said, well, we're not equipped to do that with community ed. It seems like in education, we're always one or two steps behind what's actually needed. I learned that quickly when I started doing distance education in 1994. I was one of the first ones to do it. And, it's, of course, now it's a standard thing. There's probably more online than traditional classes. And so they're kind of behind, but I'll keep working on them. And people do like to be together, though. It's kind of a bonding thing.
And keep us updated.
Yes. It's so October 1st. Yeah, we'll fire that up again, and I'll bring in guest speakers again. And
that's awesome. I don't want to ask all the questions here, but I mean, I got a ton of them.
Oh, go ahead.
When we leave this plane, our existence, whatever, when we pass, return dust to dust, do we go to a different level? Is there? I've heard several theories on this. I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, I've asked Gene that question when I had that vision. The first thing I said was, it was kind of silly, but maybe it's what a lot of people would say, because I was like shocked. It's not that I hadn't had that experience before, but not with him, because he had died just a month before or passed on, right? So he appeared as kind of like a holographic image in our walk-in closet, and I'm sitting there looking, and I did, Gene, yeah. I said, well, hi, and he said hi, and I said, what's it like to be dead? that was my first question. Maybe it was awkwardly worded, or maybe a little affrontive or whatever, but he laughed. He had a great sense of humor. He was an actor, and he was very theatrical and great, just the life of the party kind of guy, just the nicest guy. And he said, well, Bruce, if I was really dead, could we be talking to each other right now? What do you think? And I said, well, you got a point there. So he said, this is, well, how did he say it? He said, where I am he mentioned that timeless thing. He said, where I am, there is no future, there's no past. It's just all happening at the same time. And he described it as a very beautiful place. And I noticed something about him. In that holographic image, I noticed he wasn't wearing shoes. And I said, why aren't you wearing shoes? And he said, I never liked them anyway. And here we don't have to. We never have to wear shoes. So to me,
Thank goodness.
it looks,
Right?
yeah, I know. It's like shoes are not always
Are
comfortable.
pants optional?
Well, he was wearing pants, so but that might be optional too.
Garments.
That was just Sheen's preference.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's whatever, there's probably different places. I actually,
Yeah.
and then I asked the question, well, are you there with like, like bad people that we would consider bad? Like, people always bring up, where is Hitler? Is Hitler there with you? And
Yeah.
he had a funny answer to that. He said, well, they're here, but they're in a different zip code. That's what he told me.
Yeah.
And then he laughed. So I think what it is there's different levels or different areas. And you might have to work through, obviously that character would have to work through some things, whereas somebody
he's working in the crappy end of the building that has a really bad AC.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's not comfortable right now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that I think
it's just hot enough where he wants to take his coat off, but just cold enough where he feels like he's got to leave it on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he has to wear shoes.
And he has to wear shoes, very tight shoes that are uncomfortable. Yeah. And has mosquitoes, sound in his ears, whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
One of my bugaboos. I don't like that. Every once in a while that happens. You hear a little mosquito. I go, where? I don't even see it, but I hear it. Right here.
And he's repeatedly smacking himself because he thinks it lands on him.
Yeah, exactly.
So we find out that's where the bad people go. They get minorly inconvenienced for the rest of their life.
Well, it may not be for the rest of their life. I mean, it could be. He said he's working stuff out, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know what that length of time is. Actually,
he hasn't got a promotion yet.
Yeah, there is. I don't think there is any length of time.
There's not there's not time.
It doesn't exist, and that's so. When he told me that, and then I started. I've always, I went to engineering school for a while until I dropped out. So I've always been interested in science and math. So all of a sudden, I got really interested in quantum mechanics and quantum, theory. And then one of the things I learned about the quantum world is that there is no time either. Yeah. And I asked Gene, I asked Ansar, is that the same thing? I mean, where you guys are, is it like the quantum world, And he said the spirit world, the so-called alien world, and the quantum world are all the same thing. He said it's all the same. There is, and that's how it operates, and that's what I think American physicist David Bohm called the implicate order. They're the implicate reality. The explicate reality is what we are experiencing right now. The implicate reality is that next level, that quantum world where the magic stuff happens. That's where the spirits are. That's where the ghosts are. That's where the star people are. And
I hate to relate it to this, but is whenever you said how he was describing it, immediately what came to mind is, I guess, what was kind of limbo to them in The Lovely Bones.
Okay.
Where it was like, it was beautiful, it was gorgeous. They were all outdoors and just there was no time. It was just there in the present, and that's exactly what it reminded me of.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. It sounds great, but yet I'll just share something. Another friend of mine passed away. He's a Vietnam vet, and he's kind of my writing mentor. He was also a very funny person and just very, very smart. And I have pictures of my friends around, like Gene. I have a picture of him on the fridge, me and him as kids, so I always say hi to him every morning in his picture. And then I got a picture of David actually from his book behind my writing desk. This is my friend David Wilson from Vietnam. He was a clerk typist in Vietnam. And the only injury he sustained was from the Army band when they were practicing marching. He got hit by a trombone.
Oh, wow.
That was his injury.
Did you get a
I was going to say he suffered from what's it called?
Maybe.
Carpal tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
He made it out of Vietnam with nothing but a really bad case of carpal tunnel.
Exactly. So he was just hilarious. And anyway, what did he said the other day? He said, I always say hi to him, and he said, Bruce, and I said, yeah. He said, why don't you talk to the living? You'll have plenty of time to talk to us later.
Well,
which is kind of funny and kind of scary at the same time.
That's true. That's true.
So because I think he was commenting on the fact that maybe I'm talking a little bit too much to the spirits. Maybe it's okay.
Yeah.
Deal with the people that are around you right now, because you'll have plenty of time to talk to us later, because there's no time.
They're still your friends.
They are my friends, and they they don't shut me out or whatever. They always communicate with me. So, but that is so you hear funny things like that, and I don't know why this came to me, but it's kind of I'll shorten the story. But anyway, I was on a show, one of these big evening shows, and I can just say it, right? I can say the name of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was on Coast to Coast. Okay. So this guy watched it, and then he got a hold of me, and he was a film producer, and he said, yeah, it sounds like you got some stuff going on there with your psychic abilities. I want to bring you out to Chicago and test you. And I said, okay, well, I don't want to go there alone.
You're paying for the plane ticket, my buddy's ticket. You're paying for the food. I require a stipend.
I had a list of demands, in other words.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I got, so Ginger, my wife, she came with me. He flew us both out, put us up, and took me around to different haunted or paranormal sites. And there's a couple of scary ones. But one funny one is he took me to this old graveyard. And I was picking up on a lot of stuff, but he knew what was going on in that area. I had no idea. It was like west of Chicago, out toward that area. And it was an old town, old road, an old graveyard, very old graveyard. Anyway, we were walking around there, and I heard this. I was complaining because it was like 5 degrees. It was like really cold. It was January when he brought us out there. It was like 5 degrees. And I said, man, it is really cold. And all of a sudden I heard this voice that said, you think that's cold? Try being dead.
So I was going to say, I know where this is going. You think it's cold up there?
I've been under here. So sometimes it can be very funny, but then there were other experiences on that trip that were just horrific. I mean, where I got like a psychic ambush, and so it can, and that's the lesson there, is always have protection. Don't. I let hubris take over, because he was filming me and he had me mic'd up, and it's like, I'm like a movie star or something. I mean, it's so ridiculous that I even thought. So I was taking chances. I was taking shortcuts. When I knew better, he'd take me to a site. He wouldn't tell me anything about what had happened there. And terrible things happened to me, and I don't know how much time. I know we only have an hour or so, but so that the lesson there, I mean, if you want me to tell you the most horrific thing that happened, I can tell you. It's kind of the darker thing.
As long as you feel comfortable with it.
I wrote about it and I talked about it. So he took me to the south side of Chicago, and it was a very rough looking neighborhood, just tough neighborhood. And we got out, we parked in an Aldi's parking lot, which doesn't seem very scary. But as soon as I got out, I didn't do any protection, any preparation. I just got out, and immediately I started seeing like imagery, like black and white, the old black and white film of like horses and buggies and people in dark clothing just rushing by. They were all ignoring me. It was just like I was watching it. And then all of a sudden I saw this guy, and he was closer, and he was staring at me, and he had like a derby hat. He had a curly mustache, really, scary looking eyes. And he was just, and an overcoat. And he was just staring at me. And I go, wow, I don't know about that guy. And then all of a sudden, the imagery went away. So I told him, I said, he had me mic'd up, but his film camera wasn't working at the time. So he said, go ahead, do what you got to do. So I said, well, I'm going to try to get it back. So I walked into this alleyway, and there was this gnarly looking old tree. And sometimes, you probably know where I'm going with this, I went up and touched the tree, because oftentimes if you can touch an old object in the spot, you can get the connection again. Right. As soon as I touched it, and I should have known better, as soon as I touched that tree, I felt like somebody tackled me. I thought somebody actually ran up behind me and tackled me, but I'm a big guy. I'm about 6'3", 250. So it's not easy to bring me down. Tackled me to the ground and face down on the snow and the rocks,
Wow.
And I hyperextended my toe, injured my knee, but I couldn't get up. I was like being pushed down, but there was nobody there. It was a psychic force. And the really bad part was that underneath the ground, I started to see like people reaching up, and they were like, their faces were extorted, and they were crying and screaming, and they were bleeding and, like trying to pull me down. And I was losing my will to live. It's like my life was ebbing out. And I was reporting this on the recording. I said, hey, this is happening. I've seen all this stuff. And he comes running, and I'm able to get myself up out of this situation and break loose of this. And I hobble away, and he's like looking at me, and he says, I feel weird too. And I said, well, get me out of here. I don't know what happened here, but I don't want to be in this place. Let's go. So we packed up the stuff, got in the car. And I said, you got to tell me what happened here at this place. And he said, have you ever heard of the Murder Hotel? And I said, no, I never heard of the Murder Hotel. He said, have you ever heard of Dr. H.H. Holmes? Yeah. And I said, no, I'd never heard of him either. I hadn't heard of him. And he said, well, that's where the Murder Hotel was. And he built it in about the 1880s, which makes sense with what I saw when I got out of the car.
Oh my God.
1890, whatever, the World's Fair, in preparation for the World's Fair, he built this Murder Hotel. And he said up to 300 people were murdered because he had dungeons there under the ground.
Chutes and rooms that weren't rooms and led off to.
Yes. And men, women, children. I mean, it was awful. And so I said, whatever you do, don't take me to a place like this without giving me more of a warning.
Yeah, some kind of warning.
It was,
well, with that much evil, with that much evil and death.
Right, but I mean, he could have told you a little bit about, like, prepare yourself.
Yeah, this one might be a little rough.
Yeah. This is the A level, right? Or triple A, or the big leagues, whatever. Yeah. So, and then as we were driving away, he said, look at all the people around here. And I started looking at all the people. I mean, it was a poor area, but the people looked so sad and so depressed. And it wasn't just their poverty. It was like there was a heavy negative aura in that whole area.
I'm sure there is.
And it was just awful. And then I didn't know who H.H. Holmes was. So when I got back, looked on my computer, and I looked him up. And the first picture that popped up is a very famous picture of him with the derby hat, the snidely.
He was the one that
the scary eyes.
Yeah.
And I go, that's the dude. That's the guy.
Yeah, and, that location is a post office now, isn't it?
There's a post office. There's an Aldi's.
And I feel bad for the people that work there.
I know. Can you imagine working at that Aldi? And then, I mean, under normal circumstances, it's probably not fun to work at Aldi's, but especially there. But there's an alleyway, and then there's an it's elevated tracks there right above the alleyway. But so it's right there where that Murder Hotel was.
Dude is lucky he didn't get punched in the face. You didn't tell me.
I know. I was injured. I mean, I was injured for several, for probably 2 months after that. I had trouble.
You could have dealt with a hyperextended pinky. You could have just roughed him up.
Exactly. Yeah. No, he was a nice guy, and we did learn. I think he learned something too. That was a little bit more than he expected it would be, and then when I got back home here to Southern California, I was teaching my paranormal class, and I went to class. It was an evening class, and a couple of my students were professional psychics. It was fun to have them there because they were like, bringing all kinds of good information and helpful things.
Yeah.
But this one lady, I was talking about my experience in Chicago, and before I even started talking about it, she said, I got to get out of here. There's something wrong. I got to get out of here. So she ran outside, and I said, class, hang on. I got to check on her. I forgot her name, but I have to check on her. So I went out to the balcony outside of the class, and I said, what's wrong? She said, dude, there's something really attached to you. I can't take it. I can't be in the same room with you. There's something attached to you.
Wow.
You got to do something about that. And then so after that, I went to a shaman friend of mine. She's a Peruvian shaman, and I did a ritual cleansing, and I felt much better. Because
you need to smudge the crap out of me.
Because there was like the hitchhiker effect. There was a little bit. I don't think it was the actual entity that did.
Probably
I don't know if it
not.
was H.H. Holmes or the demonic entity that possessed him, or combination of the two. I don't know what it was, but it was definitely there. And
But
some
Lordy.
residual thing kind of traveled back with me to Southern California. So I had to.
Of all the bad energy to hike a
Yeah.
ride on you.
I know
You may
it
have
was.
had all kinds of demons, or
Sure.
bad spirits or whatever.
I'm going to share my screen and tell me if that looks familiar to anything.
Well, there's he looks like he's from that time period for sure. 1890s. And this guy, that picture's got the top hat or the stovepipe hat, I guess. He's got glasses. It looks like, I don't think H.H. Holmes had glasses, but the eyes are scary, and the mustache, so, and the period clothing for sure.
Okay, just not with H.H. Holmes, but
yeah.
Does he look familiar to you? I mean, does he look like anything anybody's ever described, or
show it again, please?
Yeah, I will set the story up a little bit. I was teaching a paramedic class on the south side of Atlanta.
Okay.
And we had been having some trouble with some of the students learning and stuff.
Mhm.
And they told me that this guy, and they drew it, this is their drawing, not mine, is with you constantly. And they said that he's with me, and that there's something about him related to. So when you made that description, I was like, oh, gee, that sounds like this guy that's attached to me. So,
no?
Yeah, he's got a cane too. I see there.
Yeah.
Yeah, in his right hand, he's got a cane.
And he's got a pocket watch.
And a pocket watch, which is interesting, indicating the,
I think it's interesting that he's showing it.
Yeah, and what is the time on the watch? It looks like it's 11:45, maybe quarter to midnight, or quarter to. Is that what it is? I can't quite make that.
Yeah, it's hard to. I can't zoom any more than that.
It kind of looks like
say,
quarter to midnight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't
there's
you
a
say
gas
he was a
lamp.
relative of yours, Glenn?
Well, they thought he was, but he didn't have any malice, but he was with me all the time, and it was freaking some of the students out.
Yeah,
So,
that could, attachments can be they can be I've had, mischievous ones, some elementals, which are interesting. The ones that, they were doing it to me and my youngest son, who still lives with us. He's 24 now, but they were doing the bed shaking and the blanket pulling thing. And then I had the Peruvian shaman come in, and I said, I don't think it's they're trying to harm us, but it's certainly annoying, to be sleeping. All of a sudden you feel the blankets being pulled off of you, and there's nobody there.
No.
You go, okay, that's not,
Hell no.
feel good. Or the bed shaking to where you think, oh, well, I live in Southern California. It's an earthquake, right? No, there's no earthquake. It's just the bed shaking. So I brought her in, and then it went away. So, and I think she said they were elementals. I also know that just above us here, the neighbors did some excavating, and they found some Indian artifacts. And I go, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
There's, but they weren't harmful. They were just annoying. So, And it could be friendly spirits too. It could be somebody that really wants to be with you, that is not necessarily, that's harmless, but is still there. And they do glom on and drain energy. That's the problem. That's what the shaman told me, that even if they're not there to harm you, they're just there to, kind of hitchhike a little bit and experience your life. Maybe good intentions to kind of watch over you. Sometimes they get a little too friendly or too connected, and you got to tell them, okay, thanks, and I'll see you later, or I'll bring you in later, later in the show, not right now.
Yeah.
Put you in the blue room right now,
Yeah.
green room.
There's a lot to do with intent too. Yes, you're correct.
Yes.
So do you believe that there's anything extraterrestrial, or we're just all living on one plane?
Right here on this, where we are right now.
Yeah, present. Yeah.
I think this is part of the reason I say that the quantum world, the spirit world, and the alien world are the same thing. Ghosts, I've had classic ghost experiences. They pop in and pop out. They go through walls. They go through windows. They do all that stuff. The alien abduction experiences that I've had, other people have had, they do the same kind of stuff. So yeah, they're with us. They choose when to connect to our explicit reality from their implicate. They can, peek in. We can sometimes peek in at them, although I think it's harder for us than for them because they're interdimensional, But part of our abilities, everybody, even people who don't think they have psychic ability, everybody has it. It's just how refined is it? How much do you subscribe to it? How open are you to it? And then there's the ability thing, which the best way I've described it, I'm a baseball fan. I played baseball my whole life. Everybody can throw a ball, just throw it. But some people can throw it 90 miles an hour. So it's just, there's certain levels of ability. Now, some people can improve their level of ability, they can increase that, but there's a certain ability that everybody has, and it could be very different. Maybe some people are really good at remote viewing, other people are good at psychokinesis. Everybody's got their little specialty. I think it was Dean Radin, who's the chief scientist at IONS, a friend of mine. He said, he used a track analogy. He said, just because you can throw the javelin doesn't mean you can are also an Olympic wrestler, at an Olympic level, So there's different skill sets that come with those things, and I think that's the best way it's been described to me. But everybody has those abilities, and we do experiments when I do the paranormal class, like the "Are you being watched? Is somebody looking at you?" experiment, which is really easy to do. Anybody can do. You have one person sit in a chair and turn their back to you, and then you either stare at them for a certain length of time or you don't. You look away or you stare at the back of their head. And then after a certain amount of time, you say, okay, was I staring at you or not? And the person, what we found is that everybody, and we had 35 students, the hit rate was well over guess, 50%. It was like 75%. Yeah. People just innately know when someone's staring at, and everybody's had that experience. I think everybody's had it just in the wild, right? You're walking, wait, that guy's staring at me. Why is he staring at me? So, and that was kind of fun because I had a couple of skeptics in the class, including a friend of mine, a dear friend who's a math professor, and he came in to kind of give me a hard time, but at the same time have fun. So, and he was good-natured about it, but he had to admit, that's something I hadn't thought about. It's everyday kind of thing, people experience this. And I said, well, isn't that paranormal? Think about it. You don't have eyes in the back of your head. How do you know that? Right. That's a sense that ancient people used all the time because obviously they were under more threat than we are constantly. So they needed that. Mm-hmm. I think we need it too. It can serve us well, and you can stay out of some hairy situations if you pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The CIA has spent millions of dollars learning it through remote viewing. So
yes, remote viewing is really interesting. I'm not going to say I'm a really good remote viewer, so I cheat, and I'll tell you how I cheat with remote viewing. I don't
Please
cheat
do, because I can't cheat.
like fraudulently. I'm not saying like it's a fraud. I asked Ansar to do it for me. So when I take a spirit walk, I say, "Hey, big guy, hey, what's going on right now?" Like I'd ask a question about what's going on in the White House right now, and this was like several months ago, and he would tell me, "Well, there's a paper here, and it looks like President Biden is looking over some things, some legal documents relating to his son." And I said, "Well, that makes sense. You know, he was worried about his son." And then there was some other things about his diminishing capabilities, which a lot of people recognize it, but then it got politicized, and then people didn't know what was the truth and what wasn't the truth. So I asked Ansar, and he'd been telling me all along that the president was struggling. And then when it became really apparent to everybody, I mentioned it to some people, and I'm not a political person, but I had like sharp reactions both ways. It's like, wait a second, no, I'm not jumping into your bandwagon here. I'm just telling you what I'm being told. So, and it also relates to world things that are going on, world events like COVID. I got kind of a heads up on that. So there's some precognition stuff, there's some remote viewing stuff, but I don't do it myself. I use him to help me. And what's interesting is that some of the Stargate people, I think there was a woman who was a very talented, government part of that. I can't remember her name now, but she didn't use what the others use. They used the coordinate remote viewing. What would she use? She used automatic writing. That's what she used.
Yes.
Yeah, and they didn't like it, like the others, the military people. Oh, you can't do that.
I do that frequently, and I've tried with the remote viewing to do the automatic writing with it.
Yeah. So I think whatever it takes, I use the big guy, and I, it helps me. It helps me to get some good information. And he always prefaces stuff. Because when I said, well, what's going to happen? And he says, okay, I've told you before, I'll tell you again. Predictions can be wrong, but preparations are never wrong. I can prepare you, but there could be different outcomes because there's variables, there's free will, there's different dimensions. You can split off, and what I've called the crossroads of time, this idea that you could be in this reality or you could go into this one. It depends on the decision point, and you don't know which one you're going to end up in. So your prediction may be correct if you're in the one that, that people around you are in, or your prediction could be wrong if you head in a different direction. Yeah. So now he said, be careful with predictions, but it's different with remote viewing because it's right now. What's going on right now? And that's where I can really use the help. And so that's how I do it. So all credit to my friend Ansar and actually Gene too. Gene is very evolved. He was a very evolved person here on Earth. So naturally he's very evolved in the spirit world as well. And he's very helpful as well. So I feel very lucky. My mom is an interesting case. She was, that's where I got, I think, all the psychic stuff, because she was very psychic, and her mother was too. So it just came down. And my daughter is very psychic as well. And of course she goes into nursing, right? Because she's very empathetic, and she's almost finished with her nursing school. But so yeah, so that's where it goes back to. But oddly enough, I haven't had a lot of contact with my mom. The ones I've had have been very, very powerful, and extremely powerful. And I usually don't share them because they're very personal, but they're very powerful. So it's very different than like with Gene, which tends to be more collegial, My mom is my mom. She was very much in charge. She was at large and in charge.
Well, that's how we started the show. We were talking about the female empowerment.
Yes.
We brought it full circle.
Yes.
Well, Bruce, we've only got a few more minutes with you.
It went so fast. I know.
It does.
You guys are really nice. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you for
What
sharing
can
everything.
Can I ask
what
Yeah,
a
can
quick
amazing.
question
Oh, sure.
real quickly? Um, can you explain what deja vu is?
Yeah, there's different types of deja vu. Okay, there is one that, okay, scientists try to explain it away by that it's a memory trick. I don't believe that
I
to
don't
be
think
true.
so either.
I think it's a glimpse of, we see, we catch a glimpse of that implicate order, so we see what is going on. So we see all possibilities, so that when it actually does happen, we go, I've already seen that, because we tie it into the implicate order. So that's what I think it is. I think it is a connection point to that next level. And I think it's a very paranormal thing. It's a very natural thing. And there's sometimes it can be explained away by some people say, well, it's really precognition, and that in reverse or whatever, or retrocognition or whatever. But I think what it is, I think simply it's just you've already glimpsed a little bit into the implicate order, the different possibilities. So when it actually happens, I've seen that before. And it's so powerful. And it kind of, like when I was younger, I had it more than I do now. But now I have other things that are,
Same.
that are interesting. Like precognition is very strong. Like 9/11, I had a terrible dream of the world coming apart. I mean, literally crumbling. And I woke up terrified. And actually, I was on Norfolk Naval Base when it happened. And we got trapped there, me and some colleagues, some other professors, for until Friday of that week, because they wouldn't let us off the base, But anyway, I had that terrible dream that morning. So it was, and then I found out, according to Dean Radin, the scientist, he said there were probably well over 1 million people who documented terrible dreams that morning, that had some of them very directly related to the incident, some just more symbolic, but all these people did at the same time. And and I'll just leave you one more thing with 9/11, if I have just a few seconds.
Sure.
We were scheduled to fly out of Dulles on September 12th on American Airlines Flight 77 going to LAX.
Wow.
That was the one that crashed into the Pentagon.
Yeah.
So if the terrorists had waited one more day for whatever reason, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys right now, at least not in this one. So, and my two friends who went with me, I remind them every September 11th, we kind of have a special bond, naturally. And I remind them of that. And one of them tells me, why do you keep reminding me of that? That really scares me when you mention it. And
because you have to enjoy.
I feel a special
you have to be thankful.
Yeah, I'm very
thankful that you're here.
Yeah.
I really feel a special connection to those people on Flight 77, especially the ones that hit the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
So,
Wow.
Thank you
Bruce,
for sharing
where
that.
can I get your stuff before we let you get out of here?
All my books, all my lunatic ravings.
Yes.
No, I'm just, they're all on the big old terrible Amazon. They're all available on Amazon. So if you look up my last name, Solheim, Bruce Olav Solheim, there's only 2 Bruce Solheims in America. One lives in Minnesota, and he is a marathon runner. That's not me. So that I'm the other one. I'm the
if it counts for anything, when you do type in your name, you are the first one that pops up. So.
Oh, okay, all right. So the magic is working.
Yes.
Thanks, Anzar and Jean. Yeah, thank you. No, so all my books are available there. All the paranormal, the comic books are available too on Amazon. Ebooks, e-comics. So everything's there. And then I have a website, bruceolavsolheim.com. So
if you ever need an artist, I know a guy.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I
live with one.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Come back and visit us again in the future.
I will. I was very enjoyable. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I caught a little bit of your last show too, and I like that as well. So
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, it's
Good
great.
conversation.
Very
Bruce,
much.
have a great evening. Thank you for coming on, and we will see you the next time you come on with us.
take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Good night.
I hit the button a little too quick.
Nice guy. I like him.
They were both great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that was a great show. Now I know the comments were a little back and forth, and I was trying to keep it since it is the
Yeah.
paranormal show.
Yeah.
So
Salty. A couple of guys had some questions that were really good. I mean, I wish you
Mhm.
would. They kind of wanted to be involved, but some of
Well,
them were kind of.
I think it might be better for like next time we have him on because he was kind of presenting us with everything.
Oh yes, I
Mhm.
I
understand.
think actually we could have taken him into a multiple hour show.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
we
Yeah.
would be very comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm going to have him back, and we're going to do another show because I'm left with questions that. I don't care
Yeah,
about.
Me
I
too.
feel like he left a lot of things to consider.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could
absolutely.
question him more about things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's
I'm
human
a
beings.
huge H.H. Holmes fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. That's why I was like, oh no, oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
he
he-
was supposedly also Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. I've heard
Oh.
that.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, when he started describing that guy, I was like, that's a little creepy.
Yeah. That was creepy. When
That's
you
not the
showed it, I was
same
like,
guy.
wow.
I think that
I doubt
I think that's probably one of your grandfathers, like back past,
way back,
like
yeah,
great
way
great.
back. It's possible.
And I think he's probably not anything malignant or anything. I think he probably watches over you.
I don't.
think he's-
Yeah, I don't get any malevolence from it.
He's
Anything.
probably the one that said, "Don't get bit, don't get bit, don't get bit." Then he said, "Dumbass,
Should have
don't
been.
you got bit."
Should have been a bit clearer. Well, we were talking about that tonight at the dinner table.
Were you?
That 3 seconds of my life, that was more than
Yeah.
3 seconds, that minute of my life changed my life and you guys as well,
Oh yeah.
because I would not have been doing this. I would have still been on an ambulance or a fire truck, miserable,
Right.
sucking it up.
Yeah.
Things have happened around me as far as remodeling, construction, being able to do this. That 1 minute, there's a few times in my life when I can recall 1 minute changed the course of everything. I met one of my lifelong best friends at a Radio Shack in Knoxville. His daughter married my son, and I have grandchildren with them.
Yeah.
The person that introduced me to my wife, I can remember that minute.
Mm-hmm.
That there were certain, so sometimes time is a funny thing. We
Yeah.
hate it because our bodies start aging, but it is interesting how things get entangled. And when you start looking at quantum entanglement, and that's a real deep subject, and I've barely got a GED, so I get by. But I was a paramedic. Hell, we expect. Things get so entangled. Do they exist, or do they only exist because we make them exist?
Well, I don't know if it's that we make them exist or that they're supposed to happen. I mean, like, for instance, I loved working at 911, but there was a reason that I was let go. I mean, it was partially my fault and partially a what I feel like was a political decision. But the way things turned out, I got to spend more time with my daughter. She was growing up basically without me because I worked so much and odd hours, and I probably would have been more sick than I am. If I'd stayed longer. I may not even be here.
Well, and your mental health too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I probably would have been crazier than I am.
I was gonna say, what are we comparing this to? Well, no, I mean,
I mean,
a dog-
seriously, I really have a lot of depression and anxiety. I had a lot of I'm working with it now, but um, PTSD and all that, and I didn't realize what it was doing to my body, and
And you really don't in
and you
the time
don't.
you're in it.
Yeah, really, I
Yeah.
didn't. And so, it was a favor. It was a favor that came from something that really hurt me at that time, but it
that
was the
one.
best thing. So,
I'm a firm believer, which Travis doesn't necessarily agree with me, but I'm a firm believer that, when we're put here, this is what our life looks like. And
yeah.
it's set out like this. But there are also ways that it can.
Thank you, Rock Solid.
It doesn't it doesn't necessarily stay that straight path.
Right, yeah.
It can veer off and things change, but I've always said on, whether at the time I was fully religious or not, I was raised that way. It wasn't ever something that was flat out taught, but I said, I'm a firm believer that God probably doesn't just change things on a whim for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We're each set out like this, but there are things that we can do or things that happen that end up kind of changing that course, but I still don't think that we fully veer from 100% veer from what he has laid out.
What the intention
Absolutely. I believe that.
Well, a dog named Lena is responsible for muting 3 of you on the screen right now. So
do what?
And she was sent to you for a reason.
That's a dog named Lena. Lena. Yeah, I think that was the dog's name. That's the reason I know 3 of you on the screen right now.
Oh, that's true.
It might not have been the most ideal circumstances, but she was put there for a reason.
At the moment, let me tell you. So I should have listened, but no, I mean, I agree with you. And there, like he was talking about, there is no set future. I don't think. Just temperature in here just changed dramatically.
Oh, that's weird.
It had been incredibly hot. It had been incredibly hot in this room until just a minute ago, and the AC didn't.
It's funny. I wanted to ask him whenever he said he thought the first thing he asked his friend was, and I was like, "What'd you look at him and say, heaven or hell?"
Yeah. Okay, where'd you go?
I'd look at my best friend and be like,
yeah.
I wanted to relay a story, and I actually haven't shared this on the air. When I was learning the remote view, they give you rules. They teach you rules. You're given a narrow path, and they teach you rules. Well, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I don't always stay on the path.
Oh, you're so sweet.
No.
So one day during a session, I decided that I wanted to go see what I'd called it. The Matrix is what my term, the God particle, the big computer, whatever it was. I made it there and was immediately thrown out and physically brought back to this place, sitting on my butt, not where I started. Really? Yeah.
Wow.
So there is something there. Yeah.
We told you. We told you.
No, I was told you can't just go to the Matrix. That's not where we go. What? And I'm calling it the Matrix because I don't know what it's really called.
Keanu is not there.
So I'm using my Transformers reference on that one. I went to the Matrix for the power. Yeah, I believe there is some truth to that. And yeah, I was physically thrown out of there.
Wow.
And when he mentioned a certain government building on Pennsylvania Avenue,
you couldn't go there.
I've been thrown out of there too. So
damn. Well, how could well, I guess that spirit could go in there.
You just got to get buddy with him and be like, hey,
yeah,
you want to do me a flavor?
Yeah.
I don't know that that's it. I wish the connection was that easy for me,
Yeah.
because I have to use a set of coordinates, and I have to do, I've told you all about the Monroe Gateway multiple times, things with it. And it's not a place
Nutty
I can
shit.
just roam to. Yeah, it's not a place I can just roam to. And when you do find that place and you roam to it, just don't go to the Matrix. Just don't do it.
Oh, I don't remember you telling about that.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever shared that on. There's only a few people I think I'd shared that to, but yeah, it was not a good time. So
Oh,
No,
It
3
was
minutes in, and they were like, "It's enough for you."
oh my goodness.
no, I didn't make it. I didn't make it past the welcome sign, but
Wow.
yeah. And what was funny is my handlers, I'll call them that because maybe my instructors would be a better terminology, but they had told us things like that. Don't do that, for one, and that there are certain places where there are sensors and it triggers alarms and they will send the
Really?
psychic force after you. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Our government has spent millions of dollars perfecting this. Don't think for a minute something we're going to find out about in 50 years we don't know about in 2024.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
wanted to ask Irena, I forget her first name. Her last name is Jackson. She was a reporter for the New York Post, maybe Times. I don't know. She was a very well-known reporter. She wrote a book about Area 51.
Yeah.
She wrote about in the early 50s, we had supersonic travel.
Was she the one that was killed?
No, I don't think she was killed,
Oh,
but
okay.
That we know of.
Yeah.
well, I mean, I should try and reach out to her. We have now had guests from the Art Bell show. I've had guests from the Joe Rogan show. So I mean, we're not really a big deal, but we're learning. So
Are you talking about Annie Jacobson?
it might have been. I thought it was Jackson. I'd have to look. I got her book here still. But yeah, it's a great book, and it plainly tells you back in the 50s we had things that weren't even fathomable to us now. So
Mhm.
But that's
Which
why I
is
was kind of curious about her husband working there. But then again, how much would he have even told her?
well, I don't know that it's
Or
funny
if
you
she
say
was,
that.
or if she was even into it enough to ask.
Well, but it's funny you say that. I was going to say, like, in my family, I've had people that worked for my grandparents work in two total separate branches of the government and not be able to talk to each other about certain things. So yeah, it's weird. They compartmentalize. That's how they keep their secrets. They compartmentalize. So, like
Well,
the CIA may not know what the defense
Yeah.
DOE knows.
DEA.
DEA.
So, well, the
Yeah.
most powerful one, don't let anybody fool you, is the Department of Energy. They've got the most tricks
Really?
and toys. Yep. They are the ones
And
not to play
toys?
with. In toys, yes.
Hmm.
So yeah, they're the ones not to mess with. Everybody thinks they're just there to give us power.
Oh,
They give us
no.
power.
They've got energy weapons, right?
That's what I'm told. That's what I've heard. So there are
That's what I've heard.
there are
I
things
can't.
that we don't understand.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine to be him with how much must be going on in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, he's learned to close it, which some people can't. And I've wondered when he brought up the point about people that had they were
On the spectrum.
on the spectrum.
Yeah.
I'll use that terminology. Could that very well be? And I've questioned that for a long time.
Yeah.
So, that you can't deal with it.
Well, and how many little things they notice, and they're very smart.
Yeah, true. When I worked at a mental health care facility for a little while, there were some people that came in that were diagnosed schizophrenic that I thought might possibly be
Well, and that
seeing spiritual things instead of having the
well,
internal.
and that schizophrenia could be kind of opening up
Mhm.
a different area in your brain that
There
it's
is-
kind of almost like achieving a form of enlightenment almost.
Yeah,
Not in the most ideal way, but
there was one girl in particular that her mom always brought her that I thought, I don't know about you because you don't seem like, I mean, it doesn't seem the right symptomology for
like, why are you
that.
here? You don't seem.
Yeah.
Well, there was
I mean,
a
it wasn't.
facility in Knoxville that I worked at part-time that I met somebody that was on the NASA engineering for John Glenn.
Oh,
And
really?
he was very intelligent. He says, they keep telling me I'm crazy and I know better. And we sat down because I had to one-on-one with him. It was part of my job. I had to sit with him. So he didn't do anything, whatever anything was.
Right.
And I mean, he couldn't even have a razor blade, like to shave a bit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, see, I've had to sit with people that actually did have.
Yeah, I never had one like that, but me and him had some great conversations. And he says they tell me I'm crazy. He says I know I'm getting older. I know I'm losing my mind.
Yeah.
He said,
but I hadn't lost it before.
yeah, and he told me some interesting things. So yeah, and I mean, there was things, but I couldn't even. He talked about that out thinking today. That's weird. We didn't know that. So. And I don't know if I'd want to be in that group. You always say you want to know more, but then if you learn
but do you?
Well, like what you were saying about the guy that was on about like seeing the aliens, like they couldn't cope with it. I feel like it would be kind of on a similar plane of that, like. And I mean, like for me personally, my brain is always like a radio station that's constantly changing channels. So if intermixed in like the static, then here's a song, static, here's a song, whoop, back and forth. Somebody's trying to talk to me, and then I'm getting signals from every which direction. I'm just gonna be like, shut up.
Amanda, you've been incredibly quiet tonight.
Like, I wasn't crazy before, but y'all are gonna drive me crazy.
That's what I think we're doing to Amanda. So
right.
She was intrigued. She was listening. She was being quiet and listening.
Yes, I'm taking it all in tonight.
Well, I mean, there was a lot to digest. So
there was.
Yes.
And I still don't know if there's aliens. And I wanted to know
aliens. Are you crazy?
There are aliens.
I know there are aliens, but I want to know.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
They've finally let us know that they're aliens, but give it 30 years and we'll hear about the cool aliens.
Yeah.
Well, one of the questions I wanted to ask Irena is if what she knows and what goes along with theological teaching would the two intersecting bring down our society? And that's a question I've pondered, because if you think that one day some magical fairy in the sky is going to come down and save everybody, what if that magical fairy is a UFO?
What? Wait.
See, there you go. I've opened the can of worms.
You have opened a can of worms because
a bit.
But I'm saying,
I have a theory on that.
It is not a magical fairy because I know it's not.
Well, okay, you know it. Andy may not know it. I may not know it.
We know it. We know it from our beliefs.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's real to you.
It is real to me because that's what has been taught throughout history.
But what if they lied?
So
what if the aliens were a race that were parallel to us?
So hold on, let me hop in the middle of this for a second.
No, I mean, it's true. It would just bring down our society. That's why I think they've hidden it from us.
Well, no. So here's the thing, because I grew up in the church, and fully separated myself for years
Mhm.
because I was like,
Well, I did too. Yeah.
well, I was like, somebody could have just wrote that book. How do I know?
You were told not to ask. Yes.
Well, and
Mhm.
it wasn't even, it was never that I was told not to ask, because I grew up with an excellent preacher that took all of my little kid stupid questions. It's like, why is Jesus never mentioned in the Bible as a little kid? I want to hear little kid stories about Jesus.
Did he have
And
a
he's
wife?
like, all right, well, let's talk about it.
There are a few.
I think how he explained it is it's more like teenage Jesus.
There
Yeah.
I was
were
like,
a few,
I was
there
like,
were
all
a few
right.
when he was a child, not
I was
me.
like, well, there should be more, because that would make children's time a lot more fun if there were little kid Jesus stories.
But
But-
my theory is that if they bring it down, it will break Christendom because it doesn't go along with their beliefs, and it will cause chaos in our society.
I
That
don't
is
think
what I
Well,
think.
that was kind of the thing where we were talking earlier of like, where Amanda said, would that unite us? Like, you'd like to think yes,
Yeah, you would like to think.
but with how things are now, it would just be
and
one side running after the other.
and
Yeah.
that's what and Irena was very specific about, saying the point in time we are in history.
Hmm.
You know, you can have religion
And
and you can
my-
still have aliens as well. You know
Exactly.
that.
I
I
believe
don't
in
disagree
both.
with you. I don't disagree with you, but
Mhm.
that is not the majority. So
No, we even wonder, like, is God an alien himself?
I do not wonder that.
Yes, rock solid. I would love rebellious teenage Jesus stories.
Right.
I think these are all questions that are never going to get the answers to.
Ever.
No, but
At least not mine. I'm sure I'm older than all of y'all. So I'm older than dirt.
the way that I look at it of what will happen is that if something in an alien apocalypse of sorts happens, we just have to watch.
Oh, we'll be a witness. because we
Things
can control it. Yeah.
well, it's not even that. There are just things we'll have to watch for.
Well, you know, it's like when I was talking to a biologist about Bigfoot, and he firmly did not believe it, even though I've had encounters and things happen. Said, I'm crazy. Okay, I'm crazy. I don't mind. Give
Tell me
the
something I
record.
don't know.
I'm a pill carrying member.
I just had to take my
Well,
crazy
he
pills a
told
little
me-
bit ago, so
He told me that, well, if we find one, scientists have to put it on a slab and study it. I said, so that means they'll say there's a Bigfoot race. He says, well, no, then we'll need a female. Then we'll need a juvenile. I said, so really, where does this end with science declaring that they exist? And he didn't have an answer.
you found a male one, that's enough.
But I'm saying it wouldn't be to the scientific community, because they said, well, they can't replicate. This was just a freak of nature. You know, so then
All right, then come out and tell us it's a freak of nature.
When will they have enough proof? And he couldn't answer that question. And he said, that's a very good question. I said, well, I don't need proof.
Think
because
on
I've
it.
been in the woods with things, but if
Think
if
on it and get back
scientists
to me,
want
because I want to know your answer.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, that's, you don't know when will the answer be, because there's going to be a question past that. Then there's going to be a question past that. So will you ever really know? So
Well,
all right, well,
when you mix the cryptids in with the religion is where it starts getting fuzzy. But
Why?
I do get what you
No,
mean.
it really doesn't.
There
it's not
are
not in that book, so they don't believe it now. So that's pretty
That's
much
not
it.
and that's
true.
that's
You're fucking wrong.
Oh, you get to have your opinion all you want, but you find it in there black and white, and I'll agree with you. You can't.
It is in the book of Enoch, which they took out
Oh,
of the
you mean the
Bible.
one that the King James Version eliminated? Or you could refer me to Ezekiel too, which would
Yes.
plainly speak of UFOs. But it was a winged chariot. So don't question me. I know a little bit of this stuff. I'm not an idiot.
I'm not questioning you, Glenn. I'm telling you that. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you about it. I
There's
don't give a
nothing
shit
wrong
what
with it.
you believe.
Well, I'm glad. Next week we have Bjorn Legion. He is a person that does the supernatural in writing. This is, well, never mind. I'll say it for later. And then we have a musician at 10 o'clock. So that's next week. Friday night, I'm not sure. I haven't got confirmation yet on the Grin and Guardian show. And then
This Friday?
Saturday, yeah.
I believe we did get confirmation.
Okay. Oh, that was the other Friday. There was another Friday I asked about.
Oh, okay.
And then Saturday, we will be joining the Uncle Rico show. I'm not sure of all the times and details yet, so we'll have to figure that out as we go.
Fairly certain it's 9 Eastern.
Me too, but I'm not 100%.
Yeah, I think so,
And
too.
then it may not launch exactly on time because
Look on all the socials. There'll be an update.
there may be some troubles looking it up. We're still learning that part, so I am. So yeah,
Look on the socials. We'll post an update.
we will have a Misfit show Saturday night. So that Uncle Rico's family is going to come over and show us some love, or we're going to go over there and get our asses beat. I'm not sure which.
One or the other.
We'll put them in the camel clutch.
Oh, I'll let you do that. I'm scared already.
She'll take him off the top rope.
Man, I broke the phone line tonight for Ross, so I literally broke it and locked him out. I don't even know how I did it.
You should have just left it. Like, oh, sorry, you're breaking up.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't do that. Thank you to the Parapost Network. Thank you to Ross Radio or YurgsRadio.com for all your love. And the Uncle Rico Show. We will see y'all soon.
Good night. Love everybody. Love you, Glenn.
I love you too, Dana.
You don't.
Oh, whatever. Hush, baby.